doors. If you wish to re-enter, you can re-enter through the big red doors. There's one way in today and one way out. Amen. Only in the case of emergencies, and then we'll let you be governed by both the Spirit and the signs that help you to find an exit, because that is what the Lord is. Also, we want to let you know that as you were sharing genius and gift and voice today, that we believe in capturing and chronicling this, and so we hope that you are perfectly fine with the audio and visual recordings that will be going on today. But also we want to invite you to be a part of history. Our good friends from StoryCorps are here with us. We've received a special grant and partnership in our city through our library, and so they are stationed in our vestibule in the back. You can go through the rear door on the left, your right, behind you, and be part of history by sharing your voice. Bring a friend, a family member, tell your story. It's unedited, and it is an offering unto not only this community, but generations yet to come. You've heard enough from me. There are much more important matters for us to contend with today. There are much more beautiful people to hear from, and we want to hear from you. So with that being said, let me have your attention as I present to you and offer to others the Reverend Dr. Pamela Lacey. Please receive her.
So I'm so happy you all have made it, and I've been talking to people from all over New York, California, reporters from France and whatnot. This is a phenomenal occasion, and you all just phenomenal people. To start this event, we want to have a centering ritual to center ourselves, and we've asked Dr. Joanne Terrell. She will come and lead us in a centering ritual. She comes to us from Chicago Theological Seminary, where the Right Reverend Dr. Alice Hunt is the president. And so we're so happy for the support of Chicago Theological Seminary. Dr. Terrell.
Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like Sandra. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, it sounds like Sandra. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like Sandra. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? It sounds like is calling my name. Oh, it sounds like Michael. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like Michael. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? It sounds like Rekia. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like Rekia. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like Rekia. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like Eric. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like Oscar. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like John Crawford. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like Jesus. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
That's the question, isn't it? That's what's called us here. That's the context. Because we're being called midst of a crisis. And we want to know, what should we do? What shall I do? As scholars, particularly African American scholars, many of whom were the first in their families to get a high school diploma, and then an undergraduate degree, graduate degrees, terminal degrees. We don't have the luxury. We shouldn't feel that we have the luxury to not respond to that question. What shall I do? This event is occasioned by the numbers of black bodies that have been brutalized at the hands of, and we will make it too particular if we say police brutality, because black bodies are being brutalized at the hands of systemic racism. And we will make it too particular to say across the United States. But globally, black people continue to be oppressed, and we would make it too particular to say that it started with the killing of Trayvon Martin. There are poplar trees in the South that still tell the story if we listen. So we're here to wrestle with that question, what shall I do? And I'm so appreciative of your presence and the presence of others who are making their way here. We're going to struggle with that question, but not only are we going to struggle with the question of what shall we do, we're going to do something concrete during our time. This is not simply a conference for us to listen to what people have to say, but this is not a think tank. This is a do tank. And I'm going to call up Stephen Ray, who is going to share with you some of a very important work that I hope many of you will commit to doing during the 2 days of this gathering. Stephen, would you come? Dr. Stephen Ray comes to us from Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in Chicago.
Hey people, what's up? I wanted to see you smile because I know that your soul went someplace a few moments ago. And I want to invite you to come back because, you know, we need to sort of be invited to come back. So I wanted to see you smile. So I'll say it again. What's up, people? How are you? Good, good. All right, now what we're going to do, as we noted, was that we're going to have a positional statement. So in other words, we want to say something that's gathered from us. Now, what I need for somebody to do is that I claim the fact that I am a migrant to the digital age. I'm not a native. I don't have a bunch of natives here. So I need a volunteer, somebody who's young and knows how to do this kind of stuff, to make a hashtag.
We got one.
No. This is going to be a special hashtag for our statement. So it's going to be so this is not for global consumption. This is for our consumption. Okay. So make a hashtag that only says positional statement. And I want you all to send me things that you're thinking throughout the conference. For your old people like me, pull me to the side or write it down and give it to me. Because you know you can still do pen and paper. Just what you are thinking. Because a part of what we want this positional statement to be is an organic expression of what the people gathered here in this time. Because, you know, I'm an old-line congregational, so I believe that God sends you the people that God means you to have to do certain things. So for this statement, I want this to be organic to us, organic to the people who are gathered here. So for all of the net natives, send it to the hashtag. And the hashtag is propositional statement, okay?
Positional statement.
Positional, right, because we don't deal with propositions, right? Okay, so positional statement. For all of the people who are immigrants like me, you can send me a note, or you can send me an email, or you can Facebook me too. If you really want to feel, like you're hip, you can. My daughter told me a long time ago, only old people think that they're being hip by being on Facebook. Everybody knows that you're on Instagram, and I don't know.
Twitter.
Let's get a little too deep. Okay, I guess you could tweet something. Well, anyway, what I want you to do is tell me what you are thinking, because that's what is going to be our statement. We're going to craft something out of what you tell us that you're thinking, and that then will be an organic expression of who it is that's gathered here in terms of how they are experiencing deeply engaged pedagogy, how they're experiencing the transformative power of being a community of pedagogy and not a community within which pedagogy happens. And pedagogy, I figured I needed to let them know that I am not, what's the word I'm looking for? That I'm not underrepresented. So pedagogy is just teaching, right? But just tell us what you think. And we will gather all of those up, and we'll have something to share with you late tomorrow. And if one or two of you want to work with me beyond the net native, now who's the net native that's helping me with the hashtag? Raise your hand. Come on, people, I need somebody. Thank you. Okay, so this is the net native helping me with the hashtag. So you gather the stuff up, and any of the rest of you who want to sort of work with what we get, right? This is not going to be our stuff. This is going to be our stuff. And we'll have a statement to actually say something, because there's a way that being a seminary instructor, I know that folk think that we need to be out in the streets and somehow some of what we do doesn't make any difference. But one of the things I've been very clear about for a long time is that if we all stay in the belly of the beast and nobody tries to get into the head, we'll all simply end up being products of the digestive juices of the beast. So with that, I would simply say the hashtag is positional statement. My Facebook is Stephen Ray, very simple. You can drop me a note or you can talk to me. But once again, the goal is that this is an organic statement of what we are experiencing this weekend. And the very way that we're doing this is hopefully a demonstration of what engaged pedagogy looks like. Any questions? All right, what's the hashtag?
Positional statement.
And who am I? So you can send me something on Facebook, and I see for all of the other folks, you can just write it down on a piece of paper, and we'll be happy to get it. Thank you.
The other hashtag for this event that you can use on Twitter is hashtag Scholars in Ferguson. Hashtag Scholars in Ferguson. You use that through Twitter, you can use that on Facebook. So it's my pleasure right now to ask the pastor of our first speaker to provide introductions. And we're going to be unique and allow the pastor to come forward or do the introduction from where she sits. Now let me say about pastor. Come on, pastor. The Reverend Dr. Leslie Callahan, who is a biblical studies scholar. American Religious History, excuse me, Leslie. Leslie and I were alums, we're alums of the Funds of Theological Education. And Leslie pastors Church of Philadelphia, St. Paul's Baptist Church. Her members are speaking from the audience here. And so Leslie will introduce our first speaker.
Good morning, everybody. It's really good to be here with you. And I'm really delighted to be able to introduce one of the most extraordinary intellectuals, thinkers, and writers, somebody who is thinking very deeply and very lovingly about what's going on with Black folks. Brittany Cooper is a scholar. She is assistant professor of women and gender studies at Rutgers University. She is an alum of Emory University, and before coming to Rutgers, she taught at the University of Alabama. She's a Louisianan. And what she's afraid I'm going to say, but what I have to say as her pastor, is that she's really a great church girl. She's a great church girl. You're going to find that out, because despite all of her protestations about how she's not a preacher, she's always got a text. And unless she extracts the text out of what she has to say this afternoon, she got one or two today too. Really excited about her work, really excited about her thinking, about her contribution to our thinking about Black women's intellectual tradition, as well as her public writings and her commentary in media such as television and podcasts and anything that you can think of. I know we're really going to be stimulated and intrigued and challenged by the thinking. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Brittany Cooper. I was mild. She's not a hugger, that's why I'm not going to hug her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I need to thank a few folks for this event. Thank you so much, Dr. Lightsey. Where are you? Oh, over here. Keeping us together. Thank you so much for your work convening this gathering of folks. Thank you to the pastor and community here at Wellspring Church. Thank you to the Concerned Black Scholars coordinating team. And thank you to my pastor. I consider it an honor in this historic moment, this movement moment, that we have so many committed people who want to think robustly about what a Black Freedom Project can mean, and who recognize that all of us have a place to play, a role to play in the revolution that we are trying to create. And as my pastor said, these are things that I think about regularly, and I try to think deeply and lovingly. And so today, in light of what I've been asked to do here, I want to think together with you, first by sharing some remarks and some ideas, and then with us just having a bit of conversation about this particular question, which is the question I've been asked to answer, or rather to grapple with, and that is why the scholar should commit to activism. Why the scholar should commit to activism. So as I was thinking about how I would address such a meaty question, I thought about the life of the young man whose story has so profoundly changed us. The story of Michael Brown Jr. One of the things I remember a year ago, in the days just after Mike Brown was callously murdered in Canfield, is that his high school graduation picture began to circulate. Y'all remember that picture? It had been taken just a few months before he was killed. And as it began to circulate, we learned some more context about Mike Brown. We learned of the struggle that his parents, Michael Sr. and Leslie, and his grandmother, his village, had undergone to get their beloved boy through school. And any Black folks I know who are in community with Black boys know that it's a struggle often to get our young men through school. So the cap and gown picture is a parental triumph. Each and every one of us who has been fortunate enough to graduate high school has such a picture. We have them in my family going back just one generation, high school graduation pictures, that is. I'm only the second generation of high school graduates in my family. And I'm the first person in my family to have more than one cap and gown photo. That is, I'm the first person in my family to graduate college. I graduated college at the beginning of the 21st century, but my family members have been in this country since probably the end of the 18th century. That is the late 1700s, the early 1800s. Every black family knows what the cap and gown picture means. It means that the one who has worked hard to obtain this goal has a shot at a future. It means they have commenced into adulthood. It means that all of the investment of time and resources might actually pay off. But when we encountered Michael Brown's high school graduation picture, we encountered it on the week that he should have started technical college, the same week that his family was left to plan his funeral. So as I revisited the cap and gown picture, I was reminded that it had been circulated to suggest that Michael Brown was somebody with dreams and goals and a future, rather than a common thug, a nobody. And I began to think to myself about how invested we are in that uniform of success, those cap and gown pictures, and how we think that they are bulletproof vests. But I also began to think about my own path into scholarship, about what schooling means in our communities and what it has meant historically. Now, Michael Brown went to Normandy High School, which the Washington Post has described as, quote, the most dangerous school in the city, with abysmal test scores, underperforming teachers, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I think if you give teachers the right tools, then they'll do right every time. But it has a student body in which 9 in 10 students qualify for subsidized or free lunches and a graduation rate less than 50%. The assault on our children happens relentlessly every day between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., 9 months out of the year. No matter how good of a parent you are, no matter how much you stay on teachers, blocking your children from the blows of a poor education is almost an impossible task. Now, I went to a pretty decent public school system in the small rural South, and that's an oddity. But my single mother had to call a teacher every year from the 5th grade forward because I had a racially charged incident with a teacher. Every year. Nothing about the predominantly white schools and classrooms and teachers that constituted my learning environment loved a black girl that loved books. They did not love the girl in me who asked questions of them. I'm a black scholar today because of a concerted conspiracy of love between my black mama, one singular black teacher, and a whole lot of acts of God. The black scholar must commit to activism because none of us are the scholars we are today, except for the effort, struggle, blood, sweat, and tears of the activists who came before us. I'm a scholar activist because my great-grandmother could not read. My grandmother did not get to finish school, and my mother only recently got to finish in 2013, college that is. I'm a scholar who is committed to activism because I refuse the myth of my own exceptionalism. See, I was that kid, they were like, you going somewhere, you gonna be somebody. And it's easy to build a self-concept around being the only one. And if y'all are exceptional black folks, you know what happens when you're the only one and then another one comes. And they, not you, but they have built a concept around being the only one and they act a fool. That's because they have built a whole life story based upon the myth of their own exceptionalism. The cap and gown doesn't make us worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. The second time I had a run-in with a police officer, the second time, I was fresh out of college. When the officer, a black man, became aggressive with my friend and I in an altercation that led him to threaten to arrest me and billy club me for illegally parking at a Walmart, I yelled at him not only my rights, but I let him know too that if he were to do such a thing, the headlines would read, because I thought at 21 that I was worthy of headlines. The headlines would read, Prince George's police officer viciously beats recent summa cum laude Howard University graduate. Now in that case, he backed down immediately. And when he calmed down, I said to him, why should my degree make a difference? How do you engage citizens who can't articulate their rights on the spot? He didn't have an answer. Now the challenge in this moment is that many folks would hear that story and say, see, your degree protected you. your degree was a weapon you could use to fight back. And I say to you, how did that work out for Sandra Bland? I could be Sandra Bland. I could have been her in that moment. So I learned that day, and I have learned many other days since, that our degrees don't protect us. After that encounter, I called my mama, and as black mamas do, my mama said to me that a terrible feeling had come over her just about the time that I had gotten into it with this cop. She said she knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do, so she knew only to pray. I believe I am here because I had a praying mama. But I don't think political systems should be beholden to acts of God. I believe Trayvon Martin had a praying mama too.
Yeah.
I believe Sandra Bland had a praying mama too. And Sandra Bland was an active churchgoer from what I understand. So I don't know why God showed up for me and not for them. The scholar in me demands that I ask those kinds of questions. I do know that too much of how black folks live is left up to our hope and faith that God will show up for us. I do know that that's not how it ought to be. It shouldn't take an act of God for black kids to get a good public education or to survive an encounter with police. I'm thankful for how God has made ways for me in my educational journey. I'm thankful that the racist teachers who tried to break my spirit, the racist students who made my learning environment hostile, and the black children who bullied me because they believed the lie of their own inferiority didn't win. I'm grateful to God for that. But the belief that God has favored me to the exclusion of everyone else is no way for our people to get free. Resting upon God's favor is not a program for black liberation. The belief that my degrees are a weapon is no way for our people to get free. Not when student loan debt becomes another kind of slavery. Not when we are taught national propaganda in social studies and civics classes, myths about all men being created equal, myths about democratic inclusion, myths about equal opportunity. Degrees are not a weapon when we are taught to devalue all the forms of knowing that don't exist in books. You might not be able to articulate how you know someone is a racist, but your spirit tells you to steer clear. Our spirit registers anti-blackness sometimes before our conscious minds do. So when our children come home and tell us they hate school, but they can't tell us why, we blame them for being unserious, for not having their acts together. But maybe they are trying to tell us what their spirit tells them. The place that I spend the bulk of my waking hours is not a place meant for me to survive. The scholar should commit to activism because institutional affiliation and degrees will not save our black lives. The scholar should commit to activism because we are not scholars outside the context of struggle. Students took over institutions, faced down police, challenged administrators for the right to learn about themselves, for the right to have faculty members who look like them. The two departments that I work in the university, Women's and Gender Studies and Africana Studies, are products of political struggle, products of a demand from communities to have a curriculum that reflected their needs and desires. Our kids need to be politicized to protect black studies again. And parents, I'm gonna throw this in for free. We, in black communities, have to stop sending our kids to college and telling them that the only degrees that matter are becoming doctors and lawyers. We have to stop telling them that they all need to major in business or science or pre-law, because some of them hate math and they hate science. The frameworks our kids need to survive, to question, to think critically, to imagine different forms of possibility happen in black studies classrooms. And we are so worried about them getting jobs that we're sending them out with degrees into an economy that doesn't have jobs for them, and then they don't have any critical thinking skills to think about why that's the case. Scholar activism is a framework that I learned in a black women's studies classroom, on my way to becoming a black feminist. Black women professors were the first folks to give me a language for the knowledge systems that I brought into the classroom with me. They were the first to tell me that I already had an epistemology. Every day of my teenage years, seemingly, my mama would say to me, people will tell you who they are if you just listen. My mama said that every day, every day. When you're 14, it's like, really, Mom? Why do you keep on saying that? My mama told me that if I simply listened to people, I would figure out what mattered to them. I would figure out the language in which they spoke. I would know then how to communicate with people. And I would rarely be surprised about what they did because they had already told me who they are. It would be a few years before I heard Mother Maya Angelou say, and when people show you who they are, believe them. I live by those two pieces of advice. It is a way of knowing the world, an epistemology, not based on what white official master narratives tell us that we should believe about white people or anybody else. Because if we only believe what's in books, well, the books weren't written for us, right? They didn't have us in mind. So as a scholar activist, I have to remember that I can't buy fully into the myth of what academic knowledge teaches me. But let me say something on the other side of that too. It really, really irritates me. Like really. When folks act like scholars don't have anything to add to the conversation.
Yeah.
There's a strain of conversation in our communities that sounds a little bit like, just because you got degrees don't mean you know everything. That is correct. But I might know something. I might know something that can be helpful, in fact. So see, there's a balance. Because all those years that my grandmama preached to me, baby, get your lesson. She wanted more possibility for me. She believed there was something in those books that could make a material difference between my set of possibilities and her set of possibilities, and she was right. All those years that my mama insisted that I speak proper English, she wanted to expand possibility for me. It's a bit disingenuous to have folks preach to you your whole life, get your education, make us proud. Then when you get it, they preach, now that don't make you better than nobody. And then we do a liberal version of this among academics. Our communities know what they need. They don't need us and our fancy degrees to tell them anything. I beg to differ. Everyone in my community didn't have the language and the tools to make it different. They had the language and the tools to get me out, but they existed in the same context when I left. That's what they sent me to get. They sent me to get the tools because they knew they didn't have it. So we can't go back to communities thinking that sitting in college classrooms makes us better than anybody. But we also can't front, perpetrate, and stunt like what we learned does not fundamentally change us. Patricia Hill Collins defines intellectual activism as, quote, the myriad ways that people place the power of their ideas in service to social justice. What I love about that definition is anybody can be an intellectual activist because everybody has the power of an idea at their disposal. And she says our work inheres in two functions, speaking the truth to power and speaking the truth to the people. Speaking the truth to power, which is of course a riff on the Bible, right? And then speaking the truth to the people. So here are a few of the truths that I seek to speak to power each and every time I get the opportunity. 1, our country is built on the foundation of white supremacy. It is not incidental, but rather inherent to the American project. It is inherent to the American project for the people on the bottom of the class structure, the race structure, and the gender structure to be disproportionately black and female. There is no getting around this truth. There is no sugarcoating it. What would it mean and how would we fight if we accepted that racism is a permanent feature of American life? That racial patterns would, in the words of Derek Bell, always adapt in ways that maintain white dominance. Part of the challenge that we face in encountering and dismantling white supremacy is that it is a system deeply invested in its own dominance. Even well-meaning white people struggle with the desire to fully change the system because to do so would be to change the very terms upon which their lives have meaning. Whiteness only means what it means or has the value that it has in a system predicated on white dominance and anti-blackness. To be anti-racist is to fully divest one's belief in the value of whiteness and white supremacy. And we say that very cavalierly, but we should recognize that we don't even know what such a world looks like. This is why the election of Barack Obama has so profoundly unsettled the confidence of so many white Americans. It is why we saw the clowning, buffoonish foolishness for a regaining of white male power that was the GOP debate last night. White dominance creates the context for white being, and white people literally struggle with the terms of existence and being in a world where they are not the leaders. If you are a white anti-racist, that kind of political commitment is rooted firmly in a sense of existential crisis. Who would you be but for your whiteness? How does it feel to be white? How does it feel to be the proposed solution to a set of problems you created? You can always tell how progressive liberal white folks really are by looking at how they respond to leadership of people of color. If they question, undermine, micromanage, white-splain, and always assume that they know best, these are not white people who truly believe that those who are non-white can lead. And you see them in your organizing. They say that they believe that black folks can lead, but they start to feel uneasy when black leaders actually show up. They think they know best and they begin to explain things to us. Have you ever had white people explain things to you? White-splain things to you? Sisters, have you ever had men mansplain things to you? Next, whiteness functions in this country through a deliberate ignorance about the magnitude of the injustice and brutality that black people and other people of color face. Take, for instance, the recent New Yorker interview with Michael Brown's killer. Y'all read it? You should, but get a drink first. First, the fact that this magazine thinks it's a story that we need to be telling 1 year after the killing of this boy is a story about how his killer is struggling to make it and doesn't feel safe. Imagine that. Says something profound about whose lives really matter. Says something to us as well about the ways that whiteness is always invested in its own existence. Right? So that its fundamental goal is always to rehumanize itself in the face of dehumanizing acts. So in the interview, Wilson said that he didn't read the damning Department of Justice report about the insidious, malignant, and evil pattern of discrimination that is the culture of policing in this community. He opted not to read it. He chose not to read it. He had the luxury to not read it. His understanding of the world, his maligning and pathologizing of the low culture of inner city communities, that's the kind of language he used, only works if he does not have to reckon with the structural realities that shape Mike Brown's long walk home and the structural realities that made him see Michael Brown as a monster. What is